The first sign that my marriage was circling the drain like a greasy burger wrapper wasn't Clara's sudden interest in self-help books about finding your authentic self. It wasn't even her newfound habit of working late 3 nights a week at her corporate recruiting job. No, the real kicker was when I found her Googling, "How to know if your husband is holding you back?" at 2 in the morning while I pretended to sleep. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Vincent Powell, and I'm a mechanical engineer who apparently married a woman who thinks I'm about as exciting as a broken carburetor. At 31, I've got calloused hands, a decent paycheck, and what I thought was a solid marriage to Clara Hughes. Turns out I was wrong about that last part. Clara's 29, blonde in that expensive salon way, and works as a senior recruiter at Pinnacle Corporate Solutions downtown. She's got this whole polished image thing going. Designer clothes, perfect makeup, the kind of woman who looks like she stepped out of a business magazine. Problem is, somewhere along the way, she decided I didn't fit that image anymore. The morning everything started unraveling, I was in our kitchen making coffee when Clara walked in wearing a new black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. She barely glanced at me as she grabbed her travel mug. "Working late again tonight," she announced, not asked. "Gordon wants the whole team to review the quarterly projections." Gordon Finch, her boss. 45 years old, divorced, drives a BMW that costs more than most people's houses, and has the kind of smug smile that makes you want to check your wallet after shaking his hand. I'd met him exactly twice at company parties, and both times he'd looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "Sure thing," I said, stirring my coffee. "I'll probably hit the garage anyway. Malik's got this transmission that's been giving him hell." Clara made this little noise in her throat, somewhere between a sigh and a snort. "Of course you will. God forbid you miss a chance to get grease under your fingernails." I looked up at her. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, Vincent. Absolutely nothing." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "Don't wait up." The door slammed behind her with enough force to rattle the picture frames on the wall. I stood there holding my coffee mug, wondering when exactly my wife had started talking to me like I was her disappointing teenage son instead of her husband. That afternoon, I was under the hood of a '98 Camaro at Malik's shop when my phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "Forgot my work tablet at home. Can you bring it to the office?" Malik Rodriguez, my best friend since high school and the only guy I know who can diagnose an engine problem just by listening to it idle, poked his head around the hood. "Let me guess. Her Royal Highness needs something?" "Just her tablet," I said, wiping my hands on a rag. "I'll be back in an hour." "Take your time, man. This piece of junk isn't going anywhere." I drove home to our apartment complex, a decent place in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be upscale but hadn't quite made it yet. The tablet was on Clara's nightstand, plugged into the charger. I grabbed it and was heading out when the screen lit up with an incoming email notification. I wasn't trying to snoop. Really. But the preview text was right there on the lock screen, and when you see your own name in an email your wife received, you tend to notice. Vincent still has no clue about us. The commitment check is going to be hilarious. He'll probably cry. I stared at that preview text for a full 30 seconds before my brain started working again. Then I did something I'd never done before in 5 years of marriage. I guessed Clara's passcode. Her birthday. Of course it worked. The email was from Gordon, sent to Clara and 3 other addresses I recognized as her work friends. The full message made my stomach drop through the floor. "Clara, babe, can't wait for tonight. Vincent still has no clue about us, which makes this whole thing even better. The commitment check is going to be hilarious. He'll probably cry when you tell him you're testing the relationship. The bet pool is up to $500 that he begs you to stay. Easy money. See you at the Marriott at 7. G." I scrolled up through the email thread. 3 weeks of messages. 3 weeks of my wife and her boss planning their affair, mocking me, and apparently organizing some kind of twisted game where Clara was going to test my commitment to our marriage. For a bet. The messages got worse as I read. Clara calling me boring and predictable. Gordon joking about how I probably couldn't satisfy a woman if I came with an instruction manual. Her friends, Melissa, Erica, and Tina, chiming in with their own helpful observations about my lack of ambition and my blue-collar mentality. One message from Melissa particularly stood out. "Honestly, Clara, I don't know what you ever saw in him. Gordon's offering you a real future. Vincent's just going to keep fixing cars and expecting you to be grateful for the scraps." I sat on the edge of our bed, holding my wife's tablet, reading about how the woman I'd loved for 5 years was planning to humiliate me for the entertainment of her office friends and a man who saw me as nothing more than an obstacle to his latest conquest. The commitment check was scheduled for tomorrow night. Clara was going to take me to some trendy bar downtown, probably with her friends watching from nearby tables, and announce that she needed space to figure out if our marriage was really working. Then she'd gauge my reaction, report back to Gordon and the gang, and they'd all have a good laugh about how pathetic I was. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to see things coming before other people realize they're in motion. And right then, sitting in my bedroom reading my wife's betrayal in her own words, I realized something important. Clara thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She had no idea I'd just figured out her entire game 3 moves before she made her first one. I forwarded the email thread to my personal account, then deleted the forwarded message from Clara's sent folder. Covered my tracks like I was defusing a bomb, which in a way, I guess I was. Then I drove to Clara's office and handed over the tablet with a smile. "Thanks, honey," she said, barely looking up from her computer. "You're a lifesaver." "Anything for you, babe," I replied, and I meant every word, just not in the way she thought. That night, Clara came home at 11:30, claiming the team meeting had run long. She kissed my cheek and went straight to the shower, humming some song I didn't recognize. I lay in bed listening to the water run, planning my next move. If Clara wanted to play games, I was going to show her what happens when you underestimate a guy who spent his whole life figuring out how things work, and more importantly, how to make them stop working when you need them to. Tomorrow night was going to be very interesting. The next evening, Clara spent an hour getting ready for what she thought would be my public humiliation. She chose a red dress that hugged her curves, did her makeup like she was going to a photo shoot, and sprayed on enough perfume to choke a horse, all for the big show. "Ready for dinner?" she asked, checking herself in the hallway mirror one last time. "Absolutely," I said, looking forward to it. We drove to Meridian, one of those upscale bars downtown where the drinks cost $20 and the atmosphere screams, "Look at how successful I am." Clara had chosen well. Plenty of witnesses, trendy crowd, the kind of place where a dramatic scene would get maximum attention. I spotted her friends immediately. Melissa, Erica, and Tina were sitting at a high-top table near the bar, trying to look casual while obviously watching our every move. Melissa was the ringleader, a sharp-faced brunette who worked in Clara's department and had never liked me. Erica was the follower, always agreeing with whatever Melissa said. Tina was just along for the ride, too insecure to have opinions of her own. Clara ordered a cosmopolitan. I got a beer. We made small talk for about 10 minutes while she worked up her nerve. I could see her friends leaning forward, trying to catch every word. Finally, Clara took a deep breath and launched into her performance. "Vincent, I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," she began, her voice carrying just enough to reach the nearby tables. "About us, about our future, about whether we're really right for each other." I nodded thoughtfully, playing my part. "Okay, what kind of thinking?" "I think we need some space, some time apart to really evaluate what we want from this relationship." She paused for effect, probably expecting me to start panicking right about now. "I think we should separate for a while, see how we feel when we're not together every day." The bar around us had gotten quieter. Nothing draws attention like relationship drama, and Clara was putting on quite a show. Her friends were practically vibrating with anticipation. I took a sip of my beer and smiled. "You know what, Clara? That's a fantastic idea." Her face went blank. "What?" I said that's a great idea. I think we should absolutely separate. In fact, I think we should make it permanent. The color drained from her cheeks. "Vincent, I don't think you understand what I'm—" "Oh, I understand perfectly." I pulled out my phone and opened my email app. "I understand that this whole thing is what you and Gordon call a commitment check. I understand that there's a $500 bet pool on whether I'll beg you to stay. I understand that you've been screwing your boss for 3 weeks and planning this little show for your friends' entertainment." Clara's cosmopolitan glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. The sound cut through the bar like a gunshot. "How did you—" "Your tablet," I said calmly. "You really should use a better password than your birthday, sweetheart." I stood up and turned to address her friends, raising my voice so the whole bar could hear. "Ladies, I hope you brought your wallets tonight, because you're about to lose that bet. Clara's not testing our commitment. She's ending our marriage so she can sleep with her married boss without feeling guilty about it." Melissa's mouth fell open. Erica knocked over her drink. Tina looked like she wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. But I wasn't done. I opened my email and started reading from Gordon's messages, projecting my voice like I was giving a presentation. Quote, "Vincent still has no clue about us, which makes this whole thing even better. The commitment check is going to be hilarious. He'll probably cry when you tell him you're testing the relationship." The entire bar was staring now. Clara looked like she was going to be sick. Here's another good one, I continued. This is from my loving wife. Gordon's offering me a real future. Vincent's just going to keep fixing cars and expecting me to be grateful for the scraps. Stop, Clara whispered. Please stop. Oh, but we're just getting to the good part. I scrolled down to the most recent message. This one's from earlier today. Gordon to Clara. Can't wait to celebrate your freedom tonight. Room 237 at the Marriott. Bring the champagne. I looked directly at Clara, who had tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and humiliation. So here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice carrying to every corner of the now silent bar. You're going to go to that hotel room and celebrate your freedom, and I'm going to go home and change the locks. Because as of right now, you don't live in my apartment anymore. I pulled a 20 out of my wallet and dropped it on the table. That should cover my beer. Ladies, thanks for the entertainment. It's been educational. I walked toward the exit, but stopped at the bar where Gordon's wife Lauren was sitting. I'd recognized her from Clara's company Christmas party, an elegant woman in her 40s with steel gray hair and intelligent eyes. Mrs. Finch, I said quietly, I believe your husband is expecting my wife in room 237 at the downtown Marriott tonight. Thought you should know. Lauren Finch looked at me for a long moment, then nodded once. Thank you. My pleasure. I left the bar to the sound of Clara's friends arguing in panicked whispers, and Clara herself sobbing into her hands. The commitment check had definitely been hilarious, just not in the way they'd planned. I drove straight to Home Depot, bought new locks for the apartment, and called Malik. I need a favor, I said when he answered. Name it. How fast can you get to my place with your tools? I've got some locks to change. Trouble in Paradise. Paradise just got foreclosed on. I'll explain when you get here. Malik arrived 30 minutes later with his toolbox and a 6-pack of beer. While we worked on the locks, I filled him in on the evening's events. By the time we finished installing the new lock bolts, he was shaking his head in amazement. Damn, Vincent. That's some heartless shit. Remind me never to piss you off. This is nothing, I said, testing the new keys. This is just the opening act. My phone started buzzing around midnight. Text after text from Clara, starting with apologies and quickly escalating to threats. I read them all, then blocked her number. Around 2 a.m., I heard someone trying to get into the apartment. The doorknob rattled, keys scratched against the lock, and then came the pounding. Vincent, open this door. This is my apartment, too. I walked to the door, but didn't open it. Not anymore, it isn't. You wanted freedom, remember? Congratulations. You're free. You can't do this. I have rights. You have the right to call a lawyer. You also have the right to call Gordon. I'm sure he'll be happy to help, assuming his wife doesn't eliminate him first. The pounding stopped. I heard Clara's heels clicking down the hallway, probably heading to her car to drive to whatever hotel she could find at this hour. I poured myself a scotch and sat on the couch, thinking about what came next. Clara had wanted to play games, and I'd just shown her I was better at it than she'd ever imagined. But this was only round one. Gordon Finch thought he'd won my wife and humiliated me in the process. He had no idea that I was just getting started. And Clara, sweet, manipulative Clara, thought the worst thing that could happen was losing our apartment. She was about to learn how wrong she was about that, too. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Clara had been busy rallying her troops, trying to find someone, anyone, who would help her get back into the apartment or convince me to be reasonable. The messages ranged from pathetic to threatening. Melissa had sent a long rant about how I was emotionally abusive and controlling. Erica wanted to know if I'd lost my mind. Tina, predictably, just sent crying emojis. But the most interesting message came from someone unexpected. Lauren Finch. Mr. Powell, this is Lauren Finch. Thank you for the information you provided last night. I think we should talk. Are you available for coffee this morning? I texted back immediately. Absolutely. Name the place and time. We met at a small cafe about 10 minutes from my apartment. Lauren was already waiting when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a cup of black coffee and a manila folder in front of her. Mrs. Finch, I said, sliding into the chair across from her. Lauren, please, and thank you for coming. She studied my face with sharp blue eyes. I have to ask, how long have you known about the affair? I found out yesterday afternoon. You? I've suspected for about a month. Gordon's been working late more often, taking mysterious phone calls, buying new clothes. She opened the manila folder, but I didn't have proof until last night. Inside the folder were printed emails, bank statements, and credit card records. Lauren had been busy. Hotel charges, restaurant bills, jewelry purchases, she explained, all on Gordon's corporate card, which means his company will be very interested in these expenses, especially since he's been claiming them as business meetings with clients. I whistled softly. That's fraud. Yes, it is. And Gordon's about to discover that his wife isn't the naive little housewife he thinks she is. Lauren's smile was razor sharp. I spent 15 years as a forensic accountant before I married him. I know exactly how to destroy someone financially. What do you need from me? Copies of those emails you mentioned last night. The more evidence I have, the more damage I can do. I forwarded her everything I'd saved from Clara's tablet. Lauren reviewed the messages on her phone, her expression growing colder with each one. The arrogance is breathtaking, she said finally. They actually put their affair in writing and mocked both of us while they did it. So what's your plan? I'm filing for divorce this afternoon. I'm also sending copies of all this evidence to Gordon's CEO, his HR department, and the IRS. By the end of the week, he'll be unemployed, under investigation, and paying me half of everything he owns. And Clara? Lauren's smile turned predatory. Leave Clara to me. I have some ideas. We spent another hour coordinating our attack. Lauren was methodical, ruthless, and absolutely brilliant at finding ways to make Gordon's life miserable within the bounds of the law. By the time we finished our coffee, I almost felt sorry for him. That afternoon, I was back at Malek's shop when my phone rang. Unknown number. Vincent, it's me. Clara's voice was shaky, exhausted. We need to talk? No, we really don't. Please, I'm sorry about last night. I'm sorry about everything. I made a mistake, but we can work through this. Where are you calling from? A hotel, the Comfort Inn on Route 9. Ah, not the Marriott? What happened? Did Gordon stand you up? Silence. Then, how did you know about the Marriott? Lucky guess, so he did stand you up. That must have been embarrassing. Vincent, please, let me guess what happened. You went to room 237, all dressed up for your victory celebration, and found Gordon's wife waiting for you instead. How'd that conversation go? More silence. Or maybe Gordon never showed up at all because he was too busy dealing with his own problems at home. Either way, you spent last night alone in a hotel room, realizing that your grand plan had blown up in your face. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, Clara whispered. No, it was supposed to happen with me crying and begging you to stay while Gordon laughed about it with his buddies. Sorry to disappoint you. I want to come home. You don't have a home, not with me. I hung up and went back to work on the transmission I was rebuilding. My hands were steady, my mind was clear, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Around 5 o'clock, Malek poked his head into the garage. You've got visitors? I looked up to see Melissa and Erica standing in the doorway, both dressed in their office clothes and looking seriously uncomfortable in the automotive environment. Vincent, Melissa said, trying to sound authoritative. We need to talk. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over to them. Ladies, what brings you to my humble workplace? You humiliated Clara last night, Erica said. In front of everyone. That was cruel and unnecessary. Was it? I thought it was educational. Clara wanted to test my commitment to our marriage. I showed her exactly how committed I was to a lying, cheating wife. She made a mistake, Melissa said. People make mistakes. That doesn't give you the right to destroy her life. Destroy her life? I laughed. I haven't even gotten started yet. Clara destroyed her own life the minute she decided to sleep with her boss and make a joke out of our marriage. You're being vindictive, Erica said. I'm being honest. There's a difference. Melissa stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. Clara has friends, people who care about her, people who won't let you get away with this. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I looked at both of them for a long moment, then smiled. You know what's funny? You two were in on it. You knew about the affair, you knew about the commitment check, and you were perfectly happy to watch Clara humiliate me for your entertainment. But now that it backfired, suddenly you're concerned about fairness? That's not, Erica started. Here's what's going to happen, I interrupted. You're going to leave my workplace, you're going to stop calling me, and you're going to tell Clara that her problems are her own. Because if you keep pushing this, I'll make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what kind of people you really are. You wouldn't dare, Melissa said. I pulled out my phone and showed them the email thread. I've got 3 weeks of messages showing how you encouraged Clara's affair, helped her plan my humiliation, and placed bets on my reaction. How do you think your boyfriends would feel about that? How about your coworkers? Both women went pale. Get out, I said quietly, and don't come back. They left without another word. Malik watched them drive away, then turned to me with a grin. Damn, Vincent. You're like a different person. I'm proud of you, man. Thanks. But this is still just the beginning. That evening, I got a call from Lauren Finch. Gordon's been fired, she said without preamble. Effective immediately. Corporate fraud, misuse of company resources, and harassment. They escorted him out of the building with security. What about Clara? Also fired. Turns out sleeping with your boss violates their ethics policy, especially when it involves fraudulent expense reports. She's been blacklisted from every major recruiting firm in the city. I felt a savage satisfaction wash over me. How's Gordon taking it? Not well. He showed up at the house this afternoon, drunk and ranting about how you ruined his life. I had him arrested for trespassing. Jesus. It gets better. The IRS is auditing him. The divorce papers were served this morning, and I've frozen all our joint accounts. He's staying at a motel and driving a rental car because I had his BMW repossessed. You work fast. I've had a lot of practice being married to a cheater. This time, I was ready for him. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment now, and thought about Clara and Gordon. 24 hours ago, they'd been planning my humiliation, confident in their superiority, secure in their belief that they could manipulate me without consequences. Now they were both unemployed, homeless, and facing financial ruin. Their friends had abandoned them, their reputations were destroyed, and their grand romance had crumbled under the weight of reality. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. 3 days later, Clara made her last desperate play. I was having lunch at a small diner near Malik's shop when she walked in, looking like she hadn't slept in a week. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect hair was a mess, and her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She slid into the booth across from me without invitation. Vincent, please. We need to talk. I continued eating my sandwich. I thought I made it clear that we don't. I know you're angry. I know I hurt you, but this has gone far enough. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like we're just getting to the good part. Clara leaned forward, desperation making her voice shake. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. Gordon won't even take my calls anymore. You've destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending I didn't know what you were doing. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Multiple choices over multiple weeks. You chose to cheat on me. You chose to mock me with your friends. You chose to turn our marriage into a game for your entertainment. I put down my sandwich and looked directly at her. Those weren't mistakes, Clara. That was who you really are. Tears started running down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can't we try to work this out? Go to counseling or something? Counseling? I laughed. You want to go to counseling with the man you've spent the last 3 weeks calling boring and predictable? The man you bet $500 would cry when you dumped him. I never meant for it to go this far. Gordon said it would be harmless, just a test to see how much you really cared about me. And now you know, I cared enough to stay faithful to you for 5 years. I cared enough to work 60-hour weeks to help pay for your expensive lifestyle. I cared enough to listen to you complain about your job, your friends, your mother, and everything else that bothered you. I leaned back in the booth. But I don't care enough to forgive you for betraying me and trying to humiliate me for sport. Clara was sobbing now, making a scene that had the entire diner staring at us. What am I supposed to do? I have nothing left. You have exactly what you wanted. Freedom, independence, the chance to find out who you really are without me holding you back. I don't want that anymore. I want my life back. I want us back. I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. Then you should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with your boss and make me the punchline of your joke. I walked toward the exit, but Clara grabbed my arm. Vincent, wait. Please. I love you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. No, you don't. You love the idea of not being alone. You love having someone to pay half the bills and listen to your problems. But you don't love me. If you did, none of this would have happened. I pulled free from her grip and walked out of the diner, leaving her crying in the booth. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You're going to pay for what you did to Clara. I showed the message to Malik, who shook his head. These people just don't learn, do they? Apparently not. The next morning, I found my truck's tires slashed and Ace Hole keyed into the paint. Security cameras in the parking lot had caught the whole thing, Melissa and Erica working together in the middle of the night to vandalize my vehicle. I called the police and filed a report, then called my insurance company. By noon, I had the footage uploaded to social media with a simple caption. When you expose a cheater and her friends decide to commit felony vandalism in response. The video went viral locally. Within hours, Melissa and Erica were identified by name, their employers were tagged, and their social media accounts were flooded with angry comments. Both women were arrested that evening. But the real bombshell came the next day when Lauren Finch called with news that changed everything. "Vincent, I found something you need to see. Can you meet me at the same cafe?" An hour later, I was sitting across from Lauren again, watching her open another manila folder. "I've been going through Gordon's financial records for the divorce," she said, "and I found something interesting. The commitment check wasn't just about humiliating you. It was about money." She showed me a bank statement with several large deposits over the past month. "Gordon's been running a side business," Lauren explained. "He targets married women at work, seduces them, and then films their affairs without their knowledge. He sells the videos to certain websites that specialize in that kind of content." "He was filming Clara?" "Not just Clara. I found videos of at least 6 different women, all employees or clients of his company. He's been doing this for years." Jesus Christ. It gets worse. The commitment check was supposed to be the grand finale of Clara's video series. Gordon planned to film your reaction when she dumped you, then edit it together with footage of their affair to create a complete cheating wife storyline. I stared at the bank statements, trying to process what I was hearing. "Clara knew about this?" "I don't think so. I think she was just as much a victim as you were, in her own way. Gordon manipulated her into the affair, convinced her that the commitment check was just a harmless test, and planned to profit from her humiliation, just like he profited from yours." Lauren pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. "This is from Clara, sent to Gordon yesterday. She finally figured out what he was really doing." The message read, "I know about the cameras. I know about the videos. I know this was never about love. You used me and I helped you hurt the only man who ever really cared about me. I hope Vincent destroys you the way you destroyed us." I looked up at Lauren. "Where is she now?" "I don't know, but Gordon's in jail. I turned all the evidence over to the FBI this morning. He's facing federal charges for the videos, fraud charges for the corporate theft, and about a dozen other felonies." "And Clara?" "That's up to you." I sat in the cafe for a long time after Lauren left, thinking about everything that had happened. Clara had betrayed me, humiliated me, and tried to destroy our marriage for what she thought was love. But she'd been manipulated by a predator who saw both of us as nothing more than content for his sick business. That didn't excuse what she'd done. It didn't erase the pain she'd caused or the trust she'd broken. But it did explain why the woman I'd loved for 5 years had suddenly become someone I didn't recognize. I drove to the Comfort Inn on Route 9 and knocked on the door of room 127. Clara answered, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. "Vincent?" She seemed shocked to see me. "What are you doing here?" "I know about Gordon's videos. I know what he was really doing." Clara's face crumpled. "Oh, God. You know about the cameras?" "I know about all of it. The affairs, the money, the plan to film the commitment check. I know you were being used just like I was." She stepped aside to let me into the room. It was small, dingy, nothing like the luxury hotels where she'd met Gordon for their affairs. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Vincent. I thought he loved me. I thought I was choosing a better life. I had no idea he was filming us, selling videos, making money off of our marriage falling apart." I sat down in the room's single chair. Clara remained standing, hugging herself like she was cold. "It doesn't change what you did," I said quietly. "You still cheated. You still lied. You still planned to humiliate me in front of your friends." I know, and I hate myself for it. I hate what I became. I hate that I threw away the best thing in my life for a man who saw me as nothing but a business opportunity." "Gordon's going to prison." Lauren made sure of that. "Good. He deserves it." Clara wiped her eyes. "What about us? Is there any chance?" "No," I said, not unkindly. "There's not. What we had is gone, Clara. You eliminated it when you decided I wasn't good enough for you." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I had to ask." I stood up to leave, then turned back to her. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry Gordon used you. Nobody deserves that." "Vincent?" "Yeah? I really did love you. Maybe not the way I should have, maybe not enough. But I did love you." I looked at her for a long moment, this woman who had been my wife, my partner, my best friend, before she became my betrayer. "I know you did," I said finally. "But love without respect isn't enough. And you lost respect for me long before you met Gordon." I left her in that hotel room and drove home to my apartment, where I poured myself a scotch and sat on the couch, thinking about the wreckage of the past week. Clara was right. She had loved me in her way. But she'd also resented me, looked down on me, and ultimately betrayed me because she thought she deserved better. Now she knew what better actually looked like. It looked like being used, manipulated, and discarded by a man who saw her as nothing more than a product to be sold. Gordon Finch was facing decades in federal prison. Clara was unemployed, homeless, and blacklisted from her industry. Her friends were facing criminal charges for vandalizing my truck. And me, I was free. Free from a marriage that had become a lie, free from people who saw me as less than I was, free to build a life with people who actually valued me. My phone buzzed with a text from Malik. "Beer and poker tonight at my place. You in?" I smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. Deal me in." For the first time in months, I was looking forward to tomorrow.